Hi guys, and welcome to this week's second decimal lesson. Your I can statement is I can relate decimals to fractions, and again we are working with just tenths and hundredths. So we're going to go ahead and look at some fractions, and we're going to be turning them and converting them into decimals. And this should be pretty easy because we kind of already did this our first week of decimals. So here we have a picture, and the fraction that goes with it is 8/10. Now, we don't have any whole numbers, and we know that the number left to the decimal represents one whole. So we have 0 wholes, then a decimal point, and then we have 8/10. So we note the first place right to the right of a decimal is tenths, and we have 8 of them. So our decimal is 0 and 8/10. Let's go to our next example. Again, we have our picture and we have our fraction, which is 4/10. So we don't have any whole numbers, so we have 0 and 4/10, just like that. Let's go to our next example. Okay, so this time we don't have a picture, which is fine. We should be able to do this on our own. But this time we have a whole number. So we have 3 and 1/10. So that means that we need to put the number 3 before our decimal because we have 3 wholes. Then we put our decimal point, and then we have 1/10, just like that. Then we go to our last one, we have 5/10. We don't have any whole numbers, so we can go ahead and put a 0 before our decimal, then our decimal point, and then 5/10, just like that. Awesome. Let's move on to hundredths. So this time we have 85 hundredths. So we're going to go ahead and write a 0 because we don't have any whole numbers. Then we're going to put our decimal place, and then we're going to write 85. So we have 0 and 85 hundredths is equal to 85 hundredths. Let's go to our next example here. We have 4 hundredths. We don't have any whole numbers, so we can go ahead and write a 0. And we have 4 hundredths. Now remember, in your previous lesson, we talked about equivalent fractions. If we were to write this, that would say 0 and 4/10, which is actually equal to 0 and 40 hundredths, which is also equal to 40, this is very messy, hundredths. So 40 hundredths is very different to 4 hundredths. So we need to make sure that when we are writing our decimal, for 4 hundredths, we do 0 decimal and then another 0 and then the 4. That represents 4 hundredths. Okay. Let's go to our next example. So we have 19 hundredths. I'm going to go ahead and do a whole number here. So we're going to do 2 and 19 hundredths. So we have our whole number. So that means the number before the decimal will be a 2. And then we write 19. That means we have 19 hundredths after. Perfect. And our last example is 5 hundredths. So we don't have any whole numbers. We're going to go ahead and do a 0 before the decimal. And then because it is 5, it's below 10, we have to do another 0 because we're in the hundredths. 0 and 5 hundredths, just like that. Awesome. So this time we have some decimals here, and we're going to convert them to fractions. We're just going to do the opposite of what we just did. So right here we have 0 and 9/10. So our fraction tells me right away we have one digit after the decimal. So this is out of 10. This is tenths. And then the number on top, our numerator, is going to be a 9. We have 9/10, just like that. Let's go to our next example. We have 0 and 3/10. So again, there's one number after the decimal, so that means we are out of 10. And then we're going to write 3 on top, just like that. Okay, oh, and you can't see that last example. My face is in the way. It actually looks like this, 0 and 6/10. So again, there's one decimal or one number after the decimal, so it is out of 10 and 6 goes on top. 6/10 is equal to 0 and 6/10. And then our last ones we're going to do is out of 100. So hundredths, we're going to be looking at decimals and converting them to fractions. So we have 0 and 9 hundredths. So because there are 2 numbers after the decimal, it's going to be out of 100, just like this. And then 9 is going to go on top. Then we have 79 hundredths, and because there are 2 numbers after the decimal, we're going to go like this. It's out of 100, and then do 79 on top. It is 79 hundredths. And then our last one is 50 hundredths. Again, there's two numbers after the decimal. So that means the fraction is going to be out of 100, and we have 50 hundredths. There we go. Awesome. So now I'd like you to go back into Google Classroom, and you're going to complete the comparing fractions and decimals Google form and Jamboard. Good luck.